A lot of the estuaries here in Maine are completely unexplored in terms of what I do. I am a coastal engineer who does a lot of physical oceanography type research in estuaries. And so we're trying to understand how sea level rise and increased precipitation are going to change flow patterns, how food is delivered to aquaculture farms, trying to inform future siting issues and how they can increase the extent of their farms, how expanding their farms will change flow patterns. It's important because it has such a huge industry associated with it.
My name is Zhilong Liu. I'm from China. My project is to study the aquaculture impact on the hydrodynamics. So I will use the data to validate my model and to figure out friction effect of the farms on the river.
Chris Bears. We're trying to eventually model the river. Well, the purpose of this data specifically is kind of forecast what sea level rise is going to look like in the river. So how the river's going to change when we've got a meter more water everywhere.
And we're the engineers on this project filled with biologists. I want to be able to understand how food is delivered in the system, and I want that to help aquaculture farmers better site where their farms are and anticipate how things like rising sea levels and increased precipitation are going to change those siting locations.
We are there to study the tidal in the Damariscotta River, and we measure the velocity profile across the river, and we also measure the turbulence in the river. We did the fieldwork 2 days because we did the measurement upstream, and the second day we do the similar measurement downstream.
Specifically in this estuary, climate change is going to bring increased precipitation, so a lot more rainstorms, for example. Increased precipitation affects actual calcium in oysters, so it makes them less healthy and less profitable. So not only is this changing the way that the river acts and the behavior of it, but it's actually affecting local economies and livelihoods.
Elliot, do you have a coordinate for me?
I do not, no.
GPS?
Yes, 43
I don't have
degrees.
It's important for us to figure out how the water moves the way that it does in the estuary in present day, because we can use mathematical equations to indicate how it's going to move in the future.
We're just getting the ADCP ready. Acoustic Doppler Current Profiler. A micro CTD, which stands for conductivity, temperature, and depth. Those are some of the things that it measures. We know how fast it falls, so it falls at half a meter a second, and we obviously don't want it to hit the bottom, so you time it so that you get as much of the water column as you can without damaging the instrument.
When I met Tulong, he was working on something else. He was looking at something more theoretical, and I pitched this idea to him, and he was really excited about it. And I think the one thing that was really cool to him, coming from a modeling perspective, is having to make his model validated to real conditions.
Yeah, the most tough work for the measurement is to drop the micro CTD and pull it out. Yeah, and the deepest position is almost 24-meter depth, so we have to pull it out. The micro CTD is 40 pounds. 40 pounds. Yeah, 40 pounds. We have to pull it out. It's a very hard work and tough work. Yeah, and it makes my back, feel uncomfortable for the, yeah. So, yeah, of course, yeah, even today.
Every measurement we take, we have to have the time that we took it, so that when we get back and we're looking at all this data, we know, what corresponds to what. Because when you get it, it's just a bunch of numbers. All that ADCP data, all the velocity data is just like you have the depth at that point, and you have lat and long coordinates, but it doesn't mean anything until you plot it all, and you need to know when each one of those transects that we did starts and stops. Oh, it worked great. We didn't break it.
Okay, deeper one.
We were on the boat for roughly 16 hours.
We want to help people to understand the impact on the fluid. So we want to provide a sustainable framework for the expansion of aquaculture farms, even in the river or in the coastal area.
We're in the Damariscotta River. We're only collecting data for 13 hours so that we can get one full tidal cycle, but it's a long day. Wake up was at 3:30. but we were on the water at 5, I guess, 5 o'clock, pushing off the dock, 8 o'clock at night. That was a long day. Days,
University.
like 12:30 for 2 days back to back. The 2 days was just to be able to take care of 2 separate locations on the river. We're trying to see how it changes, how it varies spatially. We needed the 13 hours so that we could be out there for 1 full tidal cycle. The tides are a little over 12 hours here, so. And we go back in 2 more weeks to do it all again so we can get the neap tide as well. So spring tide is when you have the biggest tides of the month, and neap will be the smallest. So we'll see how it varies temporally as well.
And there is this old study from like the early 1900s that investigated this, and they found that climate change from previous fluctuations depleted the oyster population here, which is neat because this area has like a historic predisposition to being depleted because of changing environment.
Are you trying to stop that?
Well, I can't stop that, but I can inform it.